Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. And I wanted to wish you a jovial solstice. It's always nice to have the days getting longer again, especially since I work in a warehouse that's very dark most of the time. It's really nice to have the days getting longer. But this solstice is very special because of the conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is was named after the god Jove, and Jove is a very joyful and expansive force in the universe. Okay, so what we have right now is a sense of expansion and joy. And then Saturn is let's say the focus of Saturn is technology. It's the planet based on technology. So what we have now is from this perspective that I have learned over the years, what is the idea of an expansion of technology, but not so much technology based on the idea of machines and new technology, although that is happening also. We have the 5G networks and things like that. This new technology that's quite remarkable. But technology also has to do with a plan, and it has to do with power. If you look at all of these ideas, the idea of our Constitution addresses the use of power and the abuse of power. It is a power. It's a power document. It creates a government, and it grants certain powers to the elected officials. When they get into office, it delineates the rights and duties and responsibilities, and when they take their oath of office, that's when they get their power. But power can be either used or abused. So when we're looking at the idea of world peace, for example, solving all these problems and being able to address these issues, we're starting to take a single idea, and then we're starting to look at let's say, power can be used for peaceful purposes to address a solution problem, crisis in the family situation, or it can be used to abuse power, and in that case it creates a sense of oppressive actions and things, and abuse of the people, taking away people's rights and our freedoms and liberties. Okay, so this is where we're looking at now is and this is something I've been talking about for a long time, is that mankind is all, because all the cycles lined up at a certain point of time between 2008 and 2012. In that period of time, now we ended all the old cycles and we're coming into the new, but now we have to we're moving out of that and we're moving into this new millennium, this new structure, this idea. So we're looking at what we don't want anymore and what we do want. We're letting go of people, the idea of the power games, and that's coming from a sense, are there compensatory games coming from a lack of power. So Jupiter is expanding this idea of power and technology and coming up with a plan. We're looking at the idea of the plan related to productivity and being able to produce ideas. So we have now the backlashes of principles, separation of principles and power. And this time period is known as Armageddon, where two people are sitting in a field and one is taken and the other is left behind. One stands on the principles and the other one goes down into the power. So all of these things are happening right now, and the solstice it's a very powerful time. The conjunction that's occurring now with Jupiter and Saturn, with the idea of expansion and joy. We're coming to an end of the oppressive actions, and feeling the joy like so many people felt when Joe Biden was elected president. But there's so many people who are holding on to this idea of the past, and the last of it is going away. And that's what I wanted to kind of talk about tonight. The idea of revenge is a power game. And what is happening is revenge. This is something that Lady Gaia goes into, because she's the female aspect of God, and vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So they're addressing those in the books that I have, the Power series books that I did with them several years ago. But what's happening now is that what I'm observing is the collapse of the Pentacle of Power related to revenge. The Iraq War devolved. Let's say the Gulf War set in the 1990s between George Herbert Walker Bush and Saddam Hussein. That devolved into I'm not going to go into this because I'm going to go into it in far greater depth in other times. But what it did was it was an act of war that set the stage for a global genocide that's devolving now. The Gulf War set the stage for the Iraq genocide, and that set the stage for Iran and several other places to play the game of greed. They were going in, they were grabbing for power, they were grabbing for money and power and contracts and things like that. That set the stage for this, let's say, the sociopaths to move in, the people the people who started ISIS, for example, took into slavery the idea of slavery. There's a lot of slavery going on in the world right now, based on ISIS and that. But then that set the stage for the terrorists to come in, the people who deny other people a voice. An example of this is we're seeing vestiges of this in voter suppression. The Donald Trump and his act of revenge against Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and we've seen this over and over again, where the birther movement and all this idea about the revenge. What that is doing is it is now coming to an end. There's these last parts of it, but the Republicans, let's say, who were seeing this idea of voter suppression, and how the Republicans, mostly from the South, like Mitch McConnell, what's going on in Georgia, overcoming the election, that basically has started to overcome this idea of voter suppression in the South. Based on this was all acts of revenge from a long time ago. So we're seeing the end of revenge. We're seeing how it doesn't work. Whenever you come up with a new plan, there's always people who want to take it and control it. They're called boogeyman. They take it, they control it, they play power games. They're character defamation, which is a form of genocide too. And weaving an illusion. There's two power games that are based on weaving an illusion. One of them is slavery, and the other one is genocide. Slavery, human rights violations, and genocide. I'm not going to go into this right now, because this is something that when we're ready to go into with the second government, the government proposals will introduce all of this, at the same time. But what happens is that the person who wages war, Now, I wanted to talk about this for several years, and it's sitting in the back of my mind. And that is one of the most monumental moments in the history of the United States, and you're not going to agree with this at all, probably, and that's okay. It was the death of George Herbert Walker Bush. George Herbert Walker Bush, President Bush, 41, I told you a few minutes ago that if you're not aware of it, the Gulf War set the stage for the Iraq genocide, the Iraq War that happened in 2003. This was the 1990s, then 2003. What happened was, when he did that, he started to create what's known as a Pentacle of Power. So it went like up, down. So George Herbert Walker Bush set the stage for the Iraq War, which set the stage for the greed to come in, the people who played the game of greed. Those were massacres. And then that brought in the sociopaths who weave an illusion. And then that brought in the terrorists who are angry because they're denied a voice. And then that reinforces the people who play the game of pride. The idea of how genocide or revenge works is fascinating, because you can see all these remarkable relationships between them, and you can recognize the power games when you see them. I'm fascinated by the whole thing, because when people get revenge on somebody, they can't get their life by getting revenge. It doesn't work. And when God says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," it's not an act of judgment that Lady Gaia or God is putting on us. It's just a logical thing, saying to your child, you can't get your life. You can't grow up and be a fine, upstanding member of society if you're functioning as a criminal. It just doesn't work. No matter, you can't get it by lying. You can't get it by weaving an illusion, because you get trapped in your own illusion. Okay, so what happened was George Herbert Walker Bush unraveled. It was like the Pentacle of Power started to unravel when he died. What he wanted to do was to have his second son, George Bush, become the president, but then he wanted Jeb Bush to become the second president. He would do a one-upmanship game on John Adams and John Quincy Adams, his son. So you see, what happened then was they were all bringing each other in and supporting each other, but then they were not getting their life by getting the revenge. He died because they hadn't resolved the issue of the Iraq War and the failed policy that it was associated with it. So now remember, we're talking not so much about technology that is based on machinery and cool new gadgets and things like that. We're talking about a plan. We're talking about a plan, and we're talking about power, and we're talking about everything. So as Jupiter is expanding this idea, we are looking at where power comes from, and we're looking at, this is the new focus now on the fact that you cannot get your life by playing power games. And by understanding the relationship between all of these people, and not necessarily conspiracy, I'm not talking about conspiracy, but they all had the common goal that they were going to get revenge on Saddam Hussein. That Pentacle of Power, they were all getting revenge, and none of them got what they wanted. They were basically tormented by that. So when George Herbert Walker Bush died, then the people who were denying other people a voice, let's say the people like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, the Republicans, who basically chose to support the war in Iraq. The preemptive strike, which it's illegal because it goes against the idea that someone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And that's why it's part of our legal system that you cannot defend yourself from prejudice and ulterior motives. If somebody is doing something to you behind your back and you have no clue that they're doing it, how do you defend yourself from that? If say you move into a town and somebody says, I don't like that person, and if we see this in schools, we see the shooters, this is an act of revenge against them, and they have no way to defend themselves, so they take an AR-15 out and they shoot other people because they don't, it's like they're being told lies and they don't know who to trust. They're trying to defend themselves, and we see movies where that is the plot, where the hero goes out and stops the bad guys by getting revenge on them, and that's basically wrong. It doesn't work that way. So what happens then is the people who are denying others a voice in their government, goes against one of our unalienable rights to have a voice in our government. That goes against God's teachings too of our unalienable rights. And then, so we see that. Now I'm going to consider the places where the governments that supported the ISIS going out and the foreign fighters moving in and doing that. And I'm going to tell you that ISIS is not a terrorist organization and never was. It's a bunch of slaves who basically were controlled. They were, let's say, flummoxed into it. You can tell the look in their eyes by the people. It's like they see no hope. They're backed into a corner. Now, if you consider doing that and controlling somebody like that by flummoxing that, that doesn't work, because what happened was that undermines the people who do that, undermine the people who are to bring them in to deny the others a voice. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to forget the Iraq War for a minute and all that revenge against Saddam Hussein. And I'm going to talk about Donald Trump for a few minutes. Donald Trump was accused of lots of lies about sexual assaults on women, things like crimes like that. So he's known as a pathological liar by people who've known him for a long time. I don't know him. But what happened to Donald Trump is there are some people who really absolutely love him and support him, and they will never let go, and they think he's the best guy in the whole world. And then other people who just look at him and he's been basically put down so many times. What would make so many people hate him so much? And I'll explain that as related to this idea about the idea of voter suppression and undermining this idea, undermining Donald Trump, and what these weird plots that he's come up with over the last. He's only got 30 some more days in office, so I wanted to talk about that for just a minute. What people who play the game, this is the power game of lust, and when people play that game because they fear intimacy. What he has is, because of his situation in his family, he fears intimacy. Okay. Then he gets revenge on Barack Obama and the Hillary Clinton, thinking that what he's going to do is to get on the opposite side of the circle a combination of a voice and abundance. Now, doesn't that make sense? That isn't that what he's doing? He's done probably 1 million tweets over the last 4 years. He just tweets, sometimes 100 times in several hours. He just tweets and tweets and tweets. He has his voice. He's always wanted a voice, and now he has it. And being president has allowed him to do it. But it's more than that. It's the idea of the revenge against Obama and the Clintons. And my theory is that the plan for the international government there was the backlash from it by the people who didn't want the people in, like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, the people who use voter suppression, Southerners basically who have relied on that to stay in power for a long time. Okay, so against black people and the Black Lives Matter movement, things like that. Okay, but this is kind of a Southern thing that's kind of left over from the South, from the Civil War era time period, and all of that. The thing is, there's nobody in agreement. There's nobody on the opposite side that's in agreement with him to have that. In a way, what he's doing is he wants abundance, and he wants a voice, but nobody's really in agreement for that to happen, because the voice that he has is weaving an illusion. It's controlling people. It is the people who do that, the sexual assault idea, are weaving an illusion, and it's based on fear of intimacy. They hold people to them, and then they push people away. They hold people to them and push people away. And that's what allows him to, let's say, send our troops in and without any regard, like the idea of the bounties on their lives. He doesn't really, that's not part of his thought process, why he doesn't stand up for that. So, but what he believes that he has by this act of revenge, he believes that he shares in common with the people who weave the illusion based on envy, the power game of envy, which starts the genocide, and then the people who play the game of war add an act of pride. That is respect. He believes he has respect, and he believes he has capacity. Okay? So he says, I'm a very powerful man. I'm the most powerful man on the planet. I'm really rich. He says that is supposed to make people respect him. When he says, I'm a businessman, I'm going to make America great again, that is this idea of capacity. The thing is, though, he's a businessman who has no prior government experience. And by running the country without regard to that, and feeling that he can just push and push and push and push until he gets his way, that's where he's gotten into trouble with the law. That's where he feels that he can control the government, that he can work with them. He's got problems because of this. And so he believes he has capacity. He believes that he has respect because of these people who are kind of on his side. And then he's doing the revenge is a means to an end to get a combination of that. So now, what we're seeing in the same thing is this abuse of power related to revenge. But when George Herbert Walker Bush died, he got it because he was the one who played the game of pride. He had respect. He was a man that had respect. He had the people around him. He demanded loyalty. People respected him for what he was doing. He felt that he would wage war to get respect. It's like, we're Americans, we have the right to put you down, so we're going to do this. Now when we find out about the truth behind the Gulf War, Saddam Hussein, according to the Wikipedia article that I read, was trying to defend his country from people stealing his oil reserves. So that's what happened, is they went in and they legitimized the idea that the United States and our allies in the Middle East could put him down with the idea that they could take the oil reserves with the Oil for Food program and things like that. Okay, so now this is all something that the joy associated with it is that this Pentacle of Power that was built up first against the Iraq War and Saddam Hussein, and now the problem with it is Donald Trump and getting revenge against Barack Obama and the Clintons. Basically, all of these things are collapsing now. they're not getting their life. It's collapsing, this Pentacle of Power. None of them are getting their lives. Donald Trump could not get his life by getting revenge on Barack Obama. Okay? It's collapsing, and each one of them, the people like Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, it's kind of like they had to become his slave. They had to give up something to be his slaves. See what I mean? It was like Donald Trump has been weaving an illusion, and now what's happening is the Republicans basically kind of like sold their soul to him, and now they're stepping away from that because they're supposed to represent their constituents, not Donald Trump. Okay? So the joy that's associated with this now is that the Pentacle of Power has collapsed. So when that happens, it's like the games aren't working anymore, and the people are going down into the abyss. How do they stay in power? How do they do that when their reputations are so badly treated? They didn't stand up to defend the United States or the constituents. They didn't stop him from playing the games. They basically became his servants, his slaves. They were backed into a corner, and they saw no solution. But the solution was always there, and that was just, you can't get your life by getting revenge. And the reason for it was that in 2011, Barack Obama introduced the plan for the international government and opened it up for debate, and many people liked the idea. But then there was that time when the backlashes from that, when he was standing on the principles that it doesn't make sense to wage war when we can take disputes between nations into court and set up a court that's fair and equal. Well, the Republicans didn't want things to be fair and equal. How were they going to stay in power if everybody was fair and equal? But so they're not standing on the principles of what makes our country great. They're standing on Donald Trump and what he was promising. Okay. So there we go. We have all of a sudden this Pentacle of Power is collapsing. The next people to come in, okay, so let's say how many other people were involved with that? How about Russia and China? Were they getting revenge? Was Russia getting revenge on them on Obama with the idea that they were going to be the next superpower? Okay. So all of this is collapsing with this new expansion of technology. Not, like I said, it's not necessarily technology meaning gadgets, but that's coming too. But now what we're doing is, after people go down into the abyss, then they have to figure out how they're going to get out of the abyss. And Dante said, as I said in a previous video, Dante called the bottom of the abyss. If you're getting revenge, and peg yourself to the last wall of hell, that doesn't work. How do you get out of something like that? You have to start to do what's in everyone's best interest, and that is the support for the plan for the international government. So let's watch now this plan for the international government. The idea has been open to debate. Many people are aware of it, and now the only way out is for people to support that idea. Not necessarily say they're going to vote for it, but they're going to start to look at it, and instead of trying to destroy it, they're going to start to look at it as their solution for getting out of the abyss. Because to get out of the abyss, you have to do what's in everyone's best interest. You have to start solving problems, and you can't get it. You can't get it by playing power games. An example of this that you might appreciate, you probably would appreciate it, and it's the easiest way to understand it is by either comparing it to diabetes or drug or alcohol abuse. Okay, if you're a diabetic and you go along and you're kind of like fudging on your diet and things like that, and then all of a sudden you have all these health issues and you're going down. Well, how do you get out of something like that? People just usually die at the bottom because they can't get their life. They don't understand how to step away from diabetes. It's just overwhelming, so they let go. Okay, they're not looking at the issues associated with that. How about alcoholism? The 12-step program is the same idea. It's like you go along and you're drinking alcohol, and all of a sudden, you start losing your job and you lose your home and your family and all of that. They don't ride down to the bottom with you. They step away from you before it's too late, before you drag them into the abyss. Okay, so then you have to stop playing the game of gluttony, which is alcoholism, one of them. How about bulimia and anorexia? Those are all associated with it. Using food or some other substance to make you feel better. You have to look at the root cause of the problem and then come out of that idea. And people can overcome alcoholism. They just have a 12-step program. Well, our organization is based on the planning process, and basically it is a 22-step program. Instead of taking you out of the abyss, we go all the way to help you create the life you want. Okay, so now I'd like you to really stop to consider watching how this works and how the power games work, and why those people who supported Donald Trump really, really did that. It's because they've turned their lives over to somebody who can't help them do it. If Donald Trump, that's the problem that they run into, is if you turn your life over to alcohol, if you turn your life over to drugs, if you are playing these power games, eventually the games stop working. And then it turns out. How about the people who turn their lives over to Social Security, and eventually it doesn't work? So you have to start assuming responsibility for your own life instead of, you have to create a sense of prosperity for yourself. You can't expect Donald Trump to make you prosperous. How could he do that? You have to do that yourself and make your own life happen. Nobody else can do your life for you. Nobody can create your life for you. You have to do it yourself. So that's all I wanted to talk about today, was this idea of expansion and why Donald Trump has so many people angry with him. It's because he's functioning outside of his capacity, and because he doesn't understand where respect comes from. The people who do that, respect comes from working together. Like, let's say people can be adversaries in the Olympics. You can be fighting really, really hard another Olympian. If you're an Olympic athlete, you're fighting hard to win. You're working and doing everything you can, but it creates a sense of respect because other people know how hard it is to get to that point. You know that they worked just as hard as you did to get to that point. They had to have capacity, but they also had to have the drive that it took to do it. So we're going to look at the potential and the drive, and then the plan. Okay? If you're an Olympic athlete, you have potential, but you also have to have the drive, and that allows you to have the plan to go to the Olympics. That's just a little bit more. We're going to look at the principles and the power and the project, but we can also look in religion at the father and the mother and the son idea. We can look at all the three levels of the universe, and that's another idea about power, is my letter to the Supreme Court and how it addresses this misunderstanding in the legal system that allows our government to do these things and to be oppressive to the people. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about today, and I wanted to wish you again a jovial solstice, and that's kind of a little play, that little joke about that. And then I wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas too, but not Christmas, but a Christ Mass, where you're working to create the life that you want. You have your potential based on your talents and gifts. Do you have the drive that can help you get out of the abyss? And at that point in time, do you have a plan, a project that you're going to work on? Okay, so this is something for you to think about as the holidays come up and the faith of the pure ray. So pay attention to that idea, coming up with a plan, a potential drive-in plan. Hey, we're talking physics here. Okay, so thank you so much for stopping by and letting me share this information with you and my insights. I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm ready to, I have to have 2 other channels who are willing to work with me on group channeling sessions. And then my sessions, the sessions that we offer here are going to be much more interesting because I'm not interested an interesting person to listen to. The people that you really want to listen to are Lady Gaia and I Am That I Am and our spirit guides. So, but I have to bring in 2 other channels who are willing to work with me to do that. So thank you so much for stopping by, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.